Hey everyone, I was just going to be like, happy Wednesday. It's not Wednesday yet, it's Tuesday if you are watching this live with me, and welcome. I'm dietitian Ashley Koff. I'm freezing here and I refuse to turn on my heater because I just hate how dry and everything it makes me. So anyway, you'll notice that I'm in my jacket. And if you're joining us live, feel free to pop in with questions. If you would like a high five for a win that you're having this week or that you've had in the last couple of days or weeks, that's one of my favorite things to do here because as practitioners where we work by ourselves a lot of times, we don't have other people that are like, you rock, great job, good win. And what I also wanted to do today is speaking of wins, I'm going to share mine. I am over the moon excited about one of our new tools at the Better Nutrition Program. So you guys are going to get a sneak peek of that tool. And then I also had a colleague, I was in a different group, and I had a colleague asking about magnesium and calcium and just some of the conversations. It's warm in Los Angeles. Well, thank you for reminding me of that and the fact, Meg, that I moved, right? But I will probably just come visit you pretty soon and maybe we can do some basketball too. So anyway, a colleague was asking about magnesium and calcium, and I am noticing this is a trend that's popping up in a lot of different places. So I said that I would talk in greater detail because I went on this like rant in a Facebook group, and I was like, wanted to explain it. I think it's easier to explain live. So first things first, my grandmother is one of my favorite people in the world, grandmother on my paternal, so on my dad's side. She passed on, but since that, or before that time period, she was one of the smartest, most life-engaged individuals that I know. Anytime I had questions about, things, I felt like I had to go read things just to prepare to go hang out with her and my grandfather. So she was always reading the newspaper, always reading books, and then loved to go to the theater. We really shared that. I think she cultivated that love of the theater for me. And one of the things that happened later in life for her was she developed macular degeneration. And I watched firsthand as she tried all of these different things. We got her something that she could read. She had like one of those, from the library where you scan your book underneath. And today there are even more tools where you can see things that are larger. And at all 85 pounds, she still would take the train from Long Island into New York City. And what she ended up doing was somehow brokering a deal or busting the folks on Broadway. We always got front row or first 3-row seats to any theater production because she had this vision impairment. So shout out to them for letting us do that, and also to my grandmother for negotiating that. But watching that experience and knowing that this is in my genetics, I have been really focused on macular degeneration and wanting to know what I could do to support my eyes. Through that, I ended up, and through just a bunch of life's coincidences, or we can believe there is no such thing as coincidences, I met this incredible ophthalmologist in New York City. Her name, Dr. Ronnie Banach, and she is integratively trained and also has gone now through functional medicine training because she is fascinated by the nutrition and the health impact over like all the things that are connecting the dots for eye health, as well as the fact that our eyes are these windows into our health. So, November, it's Diabetes Awareness Month. Meg and I know I can get a high five from you on this one. Nobody needs to be any more aware of diabetes. But I think what we need to understand and really do a better job of is taking this multidisciplinary and really whole system approach to diabetes. And so we know eye health is really critical there, both for persons who have diabetes as well as anyone who's pre-diabetic or at risk for it. And so, we go through that whole piece. So anyway, when I started talking to Dr. Rani, I was asking her all these questions. Well, let me tell you, she took me back to school in the most amazing way. And we now have this eye evaluation through the Better Nutrition Program. I'm so excited. So without me going on further, I'm actually going to take you through. So I'm going to show you the patient version. Remember, this is available to anyone. So if you are an individual and you are, as a practitioner, you want to use this with your clients, you can do that. You will get all of Ronnie's recommendations there as well as some of mine. And then if you want the practitioner version because you want to use it as an assessment tool with your patients, then you would need the shop of tools. Why do I recommend that? Because I guarantee, I promise you, you're going to want the patient version, which has all the recommendations, but also helps understand why Ronnie asked about all of these different questions and why she thinks whether you're an eye practitioner or not an eye practitioner, you want to be asking these questions of your patients. So we'll go through. I'm going to show you the patient version first, and then I will show you the practitioner version. Okay, so patient version. Oh my gosh, I'm just so excited. Okay, so, and if you have any questions as I'm going through this, go ahead and ping me here in the question box. So Ronnie is a neuro-ophthalmologist, and one of the really important things for us to understand about eye health is just its interrelationship to our cognitive function and our brain health. And so there's a lot going on in there because the brain stem and how our eyes work, like a lot of connections going on. So she explains that in detail. So one of the things that we ask about in this section, you'll notice that there's a section of 12 foods here. In the recommendation, she's going to provide more information on, are you getting these in? Because if your clients or your patients are not getting these in, that's totally fine. But we want to understand their role and specifically why nutritionally these are important for metabolism and for eye health, and then make sure that we're getting those nutrients in other forms. So we ask about then additionally foods that are rich in omega-3s and essential fatty acids. Asking some questions about other foods. Are we getting these in? For those of you that are already putting on your nutrition hats, this can be like a quiz, like why are they asking about those? And yes, things like our, vitamin A and different antioxidants. So we're asking questions on that part. It will be important to understand the quality of the different groceries that they're taking in more often. So we did include that information there. And then we also ask a lot about beverages. So what's going on? What is the body getting that could be benefiting it from a hydration standpoint? What are some of the things that could be impacting eye health? I'll take this moment to acknowledge, did you know that 70% of perimenopausal and menopausal women complain of dry eyes? So, and actually that would take us back to some of the conversation here about essential fatty acids and where are your fats coming in. But that's also going to be related to, so dryness, as we know with menopause, can be related to what types of fats we're also getting into, but also what's going on from an inflammatory standpoint. And we also want to understand and when we look at inflammation, we want to look at sugar and sugar sources. So a lot of that we're asking about. Then we ask questions about supplements in a bunch of different forms. And some of these are ones that we might say, like, who's getting in mesoxanthin, right? Important to be looking at as we go into the research, but also equally important to be looking at not just individual nutrients like copper, but when you're getting in copper, are you also getting in zinc? What's that relationship between magnesium and calcium? What's going on with certain amino acids, specifically things like carnitine and collagen, and what about those different antioxidants? We know just how powerful CoQ10 is, resveratrol, as well as all the different vitamins. So we're asking about those in the supplement form because there's a lot of information on dietary supplements and eye health, and not all of it is conclusive that it's helpful, and actually some of it could be problematic. And we dive further into that in the recommendations, and that's one of the reasons I think it's so powerful to get this version and to make sure you get those coming in. Then we're going to ask about lifestyle and health factors. You guys, this actually means that this tool is a fantastic tool to use with kids and with college students. Because when you're young, just like with your bones, and you're in that development phase, you could be laying the foundation for healthy bones, healthy eyes, but you could also be laying the foundation for problems with your eyes later on. And there are some things that are just corrective that could be super helpful. Like, for example, if you're grilling food outdoors or even indoors, what's going on with sunglasses, and are you exposed to that? We know about the carcinogens with meats when we grill those meats, but also what about just what's generally going into the air around from a grilling standpoint? So there are things to ask about. There's also really important to ask about medications, things like steroids and birth control, some of the ones for heart health and cancer treatments. Those are also going to have an impact. What about skincare with retinols and retinoids? We'll get back to that, but really start thinking about what are retinols and retinoids. Again, this is like a little quiz for us healthcare practitioners, because what we're actually looking at, and the reason we're asking about skincare, is too much of anything is not better for the eyes, and that can be creating a problem as well. Looking at your overall health, this is going to be helpful to understand things beyond eye health and how they may be impacting long-term eye health. And then some questions, we talked already about hormonal health, but some questions about genetic testing, because the ability to absorb vitamin A is going to be really important. Sometimes we have people that are just taking more and more vitamin A, and that's not better, as we'll learn. But likewise with folate and with B12, what form of that going in is going to be helpful? And do you have any of the genes for macular or for glaucoma? So what I'm now going to show you really quickly, oh my gosh, page after page after page after page, and you'll see the hyperlinks in here. It's evidence-based, so we've got information on there if you want to look up those studies. We're not promoting a bunch of our other tools, but we've got that information in there. There's Rani, and she does also have a free ebook that she is sharing with anyone who's getting the tools, so we want to make sure that we have that part. So what we do in this instance is, and I'm not going to go through all of it now, but this is just explaining why at minimum you want to get the patient version of this tool to have, because you can go through and you can be helping your patient figure out what their eye health is trying to tell you and them about their overall health. Now, none of it is a replacement for an eye exam. So that's super important, but also this can be a way for you to talk to eye health practitioners about collaborating with them on a nutrition front, because perhaps they want to have their patients do this and do that as a referral over to you, and it's something that you could be going over. So one of the really interesting things here, why those 12 foods? Because they come from a set of a program known as the Mitochondrial Food Plan. And one of the things that Dr. Rani was explaining is that the eyes are a direct extension of the brain, and it makes them really the most metabolically active organs in our body. The brain is only 2% of our body's weight, but it consumes up to 25% of our energy needs. That's why when we're not eating better, we're actually starving our brain of what it needs to run better. And again, this is a great conversation. This, along with the rainbow evaluation, awesome conversation for young people, just to start focusing on, what are we doing in that part. So that's really why we have the mitochondrial food discussion. So I wanted to share that. I also wanted to share this super interesting discussion about what the supplements and what we really know about these studies, what they have and have not said, and just point you to the fact that we go through this here in a very specific way that you can address this nutritionally. So I just want to share that part, that you would be getting that from this tool. So you guys and gals, so unbelievably excited about this tool. And then what I'll do is I'll just share that, of course, the example that you would get for the when you get the shop of tools, when you get the practitioner version, you would get this version, which would allow you to have the notes section. If you're a shop of tools owner and you want to use your 15% off to purchase the eye practitioner, the patient version, we will then also send you the eye health evaluation if you're already a practitioner on that part. If you don't have your 15% off code, just make sure that you get that from us. You can just email team@thebetternutritionprogram.com and you'll get that. And what a cool image. So I'm going to stop for a second and just see if anyone has any questions on the eye health part. I know I'm super excited, and I have actually changed both my personal supplement recommendation and also a little bit of my food focus in terms of just making sure that I'm doing what I can at this point from a preventative health standpoint. And I've done genetic testing for MTHFR. I haven't done it to look at vitamin A absorption. Probably would be helpful. So I'll be having a conversation with Amanda Archibald on that one as well, and so she can fill me in on the do's and don'ts there. Okay, so we're going to shift gears. I'm moving at a pace because I know you guys are, any moment that I get with you is a moment that I am so grateful for. And I know if you're like me, you're like, okay, there are all these things I could be doing right now. So magnesium and calcium. Here's the issue. Calcium supplementation is pretty problematic because we don't know from a calcium standpoint if we are going to be, one, the form of the calcium absorption, and number two, is it really going to go where it needs to go? Now, if we need to round out our calcium intake because we're not meeting that total 1,000 or 1,200 milligrams, and we need to include some amount in a supplement form from a dietary, then to complement our dietary intake, I'm open to that. But we should not be recommending calcium supplementation as part of a general multi without understanding the food intake. There's just too much risk associated with it, especially when we see the high rates of, in particular, arterial plaque buildup, and the fact that calcium alone does not build bone. We need all of those other nutrients. So that's also going to be really important on that piece. Now, adding calcium can also constipate and or cause more, because of its role as a muscle contractor, it can contribute more on that part. We absolutely need it. We just want to make sure that we're not taking in too much of it. So really what it comes down to is how are we doing on the magnesium front? So just as a reminder, like our eye evaluation, we have our magnesium evaluation, and we do want to, before supplementing with magnesium, we want to go through this and see. If you heard my rant yesterday on, or if you haven't heard it, you're welcome to grab it off of YouTube, or if you're in the group here, you can see it below, my rant on micronutrient testing. It wasn't that I'm opposed to micronutrient testing, but boy, am I unhappy with, and I had to spend 4 days at a booth or next to a booth where they were selling a micronutrient blood test. So they would take a person's blood and then dietitians would review the results. But the only thing that they're giving you back, they're spewing out supplements that they recommend. They're white labeling their own supplements and selling that. And the reason I go like fuming right now, even just talking about it, is the answer to a deficiency, one, of magnesium, which is really severe for us to understand, because if your blood levels are deficient in magnesium, that means that you're insufficient in optimal levels far beyond just that deficiency. So what that tells me is not that you want a supplement, that tells me that you want to get to the root cause of why you're magnesium deficient. So one of the reasons, and this was the question that came up in Facebook, in the Facebook group, was why might we not be seeing magnesium levels that are sufficient? Well, one reason is we might not be eating enough magnesium. So it's deliciously easy from a diverse bunch of sources to get in enough magnesium. And so that's one of the things that our magnesium evaluation will help us identify. Also, it can be very easy to get in the wrong kinds of magnesium supplement or take in beverages or things that may interfere with the absorption of that magnesium. So that's important to look at. And there are things that might be increasing our needs. So what you might be seeing is somebody's levels may not be improving on testing, but maybe they were so otherwise insufficient that the body is choosing to give the magnesium to other places, and you're not seeing the improvement yet in the blood, even though maybe they're having overall improvement in some of the other things. So one of the things we would do is we would be asking about these components. So just wanted to share that piece just as a reminder that we want to do that total assessment to figure out the root cause of why we might not be seeing improvement despite supplementation. Now, some of the things that are asked about in there are, number one, digestion and absorption. So absorption. I can't quite say it 3 times in a row, but I could say it 1,000 times. We are not what we eat. So even if we eat delicious dark chocolate that's rich in magnesium, we are not rich in magnesium. We don't get to be rich in magnesium until we digest and absorb that properly. So the breakdown of nutrients may be a factor. So is the form of the magnesium an issue? Maybe you need a powder. Maybe just even breaking down the capsule or the tablet is not something that's effective. Also, that may depend on somebody's hydrochloric acid, their stomach acid, how their overall system is working, what else they're consuming at the same time, because maybe there's competition that's going on. So with food, we may recommend digestive enzymes to just help the body make some of that a little bit more absorbable, especially if you're looking at food forms of magnesium to improve overall status, maybe nuts and seeds, maybe somebody isn't chewing as well, or maybe there are other reasons that it's not being as well digested. So we could look at that part. And then absorption wise, I'm a super, as you know from my digestive tune-up, I'm a really big fan of looking at things like glutamine and looking at what repairs and helps to maintain a healthy gut lining so that that absorption can occur there, especially if there's a history of leaky gut, absolutely, or if there's been a stress or an irritation, maybe somebody has been taking certain medications that could be an irritant there. Maybe we found out later on that they're glucose intolerant or they have celiac, and that didn't just overnight happen. There were probably years, even decades, where that was happening, and that may have, and most certainly would have impaired the villi and the ability for the absorption. So absorption is going to be a really important factor. It is why sometimes we actually turn to things, whether it's a sublingual form of something, or we actually turn, as I mentioned, to a liquid or to a powder. One of the things with some of the liquids that I found, and I was commenting on this, is that sometimes the other ingredients in the liquids, unfortunately, especially for somebody who may have digestive issues, could cause bloating or gas or that kind of thing, just depending on what they're using to make it into a liquid. So a lot of the powders I like a little bit better. And then other nutrients that work in conjunction with magnesium and that magnesium helps to support absorption of. So that could also be helpful, with getting the magnesium in, but also getting in these other helpful nutrients. So absorption is going to be a really important factor in seeing, and then getting in enough. And one of the issues that we know is that, as I was mentioning, let's say that we see in the blood test, which really represents about 1, maybe 2% of your overall magnesium needs, the body's overall needs. Let's say that we're not really seeing improvement there. Well, maybe that other 98% was only at a 75%. You with me? So there could be that. So we know the 2% isn't where we want it to be, but the other 98%, 75% was only the amount of the needs that are being met by the diet. So really, we're not going to see an improvement at the blood level, even though the body would want to preferentially put it there. We might not see that improvement until we start to take somebody from 75 to 98 or to 100 on that part. So one of the things that I highly recommend is really looking at food sources, because just looking at supplemental, you actually, what we know with a lot of increasing of magnesium intake is you may increase excretion. Well, that's great if you increase elimination and somebody's pooping and all that, but if out goes the magnesium instead of it being absorbed and used because you're taking in too much at one time or you're taking too much in supplementally, that could also be a reason that the person isn't actually seeing those numbers bump up. So that's why I bring us back to that food recommendation side of things. And we also have the Magnesium Menu. Let me see if it's easy for me to, yep. Oh, I love when I do this. Super smart. I love it when a plan comes together. So let me come over here. So for those of you that have our shop of tools, you also have our Magnesium Menu. So we want to get in about, oh, actually that's an old version, so things are X'd out, but don't worry. The notion is in the final one that you're seeing how you could, from a day's worth, get in all of these, start to meet that 400 milligrams with a diversity of different foods. And so you can see how that all blends together. And you'll just see the edits I'm always doing, on our team. We do this at least once a year, but if not more often. So, the notion of just saying, hey, instead of your apple with peanut butter, what if we did the apple with cashew butter? Or what if, with our spinach salad, we add these other things in order to increase magnesium intake? Those are going to be great suggestions to help you reach these higher nutrient amounts from food, which is going to be one of the ways that you can improve intake overall. So that is what I wanted to share there. So to my colleague, I wanted to share that we've got ways to look at, it's never as simple as just nutrient testing to everyone, I want to share. And also reminder of the video that I did last night. It's never as simple as micronutrient testing and supplement recommending. Never that simple. Even with vitamin D, where usually the answer is we test and then we supplement because it's super difficult to get it in from a food standpoint, we still want to be looking at what else is going on because of how important it is that the vitamin D, so for example, magnesium helps with vitamin D absorption. So even in that instance where we really are going test to supplement, we want to look at total nutrition to look at optimization of that nutrient. So let's just know on test supplement. Now, in addition, somebody who is testing and recommending their own supplement is circumventing you, the qualified practitioner, and I hate that because not only do you have more than an AI test can offer, even if dietitians are reviewing the test results and recommending the supplements. The type of supplement that is better for each individual is not necessarily the one that this supplement company is selling. I used the analogy last night, is probably pretty severe, but I'm pretty severe in what I want to say here, which is I don't love that. One of the reasons that I don't love Monsanto Bayer is that they create the seeds that are genetically modified to be resistant to their glyphosate. But because they sell glyphosate as Roundup, they then actually recommend that you apply a lot more than is needed, instead of saying, oh, these seeds are resistant, so, and we've built that resistance in, so maybe you need less of it. That would be a bad business plan for them. So one can imagine that if somebody's micronutrient testing and selling supplements in the same thing, that they are going to recommend their supplements every time as a solution, instead of saying maybe you need to eat different food and also supplement. And that's the role of the healthcare practitioner. So that's where I am this Tuesday. If anyone has any questions, I'll take them for a couple. We've got about 3 minutes, but I know in 3 minutes we can all do a lot. If you want those 3 minutes back, by all means, yes, I'll say goodbye. And thank you for joining. And I'm super, super excited about the eye health evaluation. And just remember to use your 15% off code if you're already a Shop of Tools owner. So just want to make sure that we have that. All right, everybody. Oh, thank you, my dear. Great. Enjoy the warmth, Meg. I'm jealous. So, but I'm sure that I'll be out there soon. So I promise you I'll be out there soon. So we'll make that happen. All right, everybody. Have a good one. Take care.